Hello, Americans. 4 World Trade Center predicate acts were involved, and that's a subject. And the names that have roles with that, and there are families. There's intelligence families associated with people named. I don't know if they are intelligence families, but they're named Scalora, the people involved with them. And they've been involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and timed collusions with people at each campus I went to and next to them, which presents the hyper evidential, which having black pupils, whites of eyes, presents and has presented since we were founding, with other communicated for our founders too than they communicated, and rolls with its self value, also self valuing simultaneously. Other communicated for what they communicated regarding what they said. They had to declassify it afterward. And we know this, but we have that replaced. And they have measured and maintained self-valued roles who will speak simultaneously criminally foreign influence and simultaneously tactically delusions wrought, and the difference of that used. Also, where this can be observed is relative to where and to how. For example, our founders in nature itself communicates that a human fact cheating nature breaching method was one of the things that was what slavery was about, which was those crazy torture, extortion, slavery laws against everyone, and roles with it sustained. So those roles would be described. They would have to be described because they knew the breaching method knew that nature was going to continually demonstrate negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures relative to where and how nature's identity, its identity relationship to itself, and the value of that, the way we could discern it with each subject relative / hyper relativity to each subject. See, relativity is not a theory. And on a mass scale, at countries A through Z, the suits and ties, the counters and exceptions, this breaching method knows that only an individual can defend the order of the finite, for example. And the nature of could overcome that nature of quality of fact cheating nature as criminal insidiousness / hypercriminal insidiousness. I am not a lawyer. I'm not a police form. I am not a journalist. There are many journalists tied to a Perron family and to a Kerr family that sought me out to plant evidences relative to their roles with people next to Fox Connecticut News and next to WFSB. Involved also with WFSB attached me to fake conversations with themselves and with others about the World Trade Center attack. Has something to do with their roles all along Route 3 and with a Mr. Neville. Mr. Neville recorded. I only asked him one question. I only have one personal question, but I didn't give my phone back. Mr. Neville. And so they were putting me with fake ties to kids I wasn't even in the presence of ever, like a Joshua Julian. These are also families increasingly with other countries in the news. Every single one of them. Russians, American, Ukrainian. Hartford Hospital has Russians and Ukrainian people involved with them, with the Leahy family that attached me to fake conversations with themselves and others, and with various courts, judges, and prosecutors and their family members personally and professionally involved with them, putting through the mail fake conversations with me. They're changing and faking digital evidences with a proven first forced principal child abuser. I caught them with the worst for brought up intercities. People tied to a Robert Rodriguez is one of the people from other areas who was planting evidences on my street, exploiting, for example, a field across the street from my house. Walk by and pretend and make confessions 2 times I didn't respond to. Then I responded on Facebook when I saw them on Facebook. Facebook has people personally. Some ways they're criminally involved. The FBI, former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, his co-defendants, their neighbors have roles with judges, family members, with wire crimes with the houses near me, with the Wethersfield police. And then they're pretending that they're trying to make fights between people or all positives too. They need the difference of that because they have roles being and having been used remotely by a whole bunch of different countries at the same time because they have the same problem there too. Because there's also a hyper foreign name. To appreciate this, we have to be able to appreciate science and the scientific value of the human fact cheating nature breaching method, how nature itself shows us and our founders communicated a human fact cheating nature breaching method is one of the things true always. That is what caused slavery, not natural human motivations, not but as criminal insidiousness nature slash hyper criminal insidiousness nature. Nature itself can be used to discern that we not only have obligation to use the phrase criminal insidiousness relative to not just to these subjects, the treatments of past active and prospective treatment, outlooks. You guys have to understand the principles first. You have to understand James Madison's plan to counter, extort, and force the other people already tortured, extorted, and enslaved, regardless of who was on the better end of it or not. This has been perfected since before modern religious messengers were born. All that was known was locations, areas, and states, and the difference between them forcing the individual as a leader to entertain their styles, the fact should be nature, quality aspects of nature, or the leader forcing them to. That differences was used remotely. By that which used and uses remotely, all natures of sophistication and non-sophistication as collusions, clearer than day. There have been concentrated predicate acts with facts methods per a singular method. There has been a singular hyper predicate acts with facts method /s upon the people of the suburbs, let alone the cities. And don't leave out the suburban /urban, as Hartford describes itself. As these towns and cities describe themselves, as if they're advertising, because then there's tourism. That has been for a number of principal reasons relative to the Trinity as well, per science. But see, this is also a science prevented per mass sequence shift styles and natures of logic, self-valued and self-valuing not being and haven't been used remotely. Because now you can just quote research locations are and have been many ways observably. Roles of predicate acts with facts methods. Roles with use /s of standing distinct natures of criminal insidiousness. Still has that standing nature of criminal insidiousness that cannot defend itself and afford to be, let alone to protract. Words proper regarding what really caused the worst negative value nature progressions, acts and natures at any location, area, or state, let alone New York City and Hartford, which are connected by World Trade Center predicate acts. Hartford Hospital has more predicate acts and names and people associated with them involved with scams under the guise of healthcare. It's not even real healthcare, with the mental health part and the security part and their roles with the systems. This is every hospital with the same ones. Wire crime, mail crimes with the same house. Drugs and medicines crimes with kids, identity theft, fraud, slanders. Their collusions with their educators, out of the state corrections offices, out of the state judicial branch offices, the next to that, and the difference of it. I've been begging you guys to get them on paper, one name and sequence. They are offensively torturing, extorting, enslaving me by pretending I had conversations with the people tied to a King family is involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders. People involved with home break-ins in my area with the Wethersfield Police and State Police and Whiting Forensics Police, and people at the judicial branch offices and their neighbors involved with body dumping spots, identity theft, fraud, slanders, under the guises of all kinds of investigators and people tied to them since I was a kid, planting evidences on my street. Used criminally foreign influence with the people a whole bunch of different countries associated with a former mayor Gold and his family keep getting brought up in confessions to me from strangers that I didn't respond to at all. And the other ones, and they're involved with these people that, like this Leahy family, put a whole fake transcripts through the mail. They have various natures of judges, family members, and prosecutors involved with predicate acts with the same houses near me, involved with the Wethersfield police, forging and switching names. They even pretended through the news that I had conversations with them when I was a kid. I didn't go out to the police station at all when I was a kid. And when I was arrested, I had no, because they were planting fake things. They know I recorded this. I recorded them planting fake things since I was a kid, and then covering it up. And rolls with it, I recorded. A whole bunch of people next to the state capitol of Connecticut have rolls with an O'Brien family and a former mayor Gold with a whole bunch of different police departments, and with this Colello and tomorrow. A Colello family came in when I was in fourth grade to a campus I started at first grade to sixth grade. And that's the one with the principal child abuser that I caught them with, forcing, and the police chief's family and intimate ties, collusions through time with the same house. There's also reportedly involved with the intimate ties to a former police chief, and maybe more than one. And then a house connected to them with this various ways is also off the Wethersfield Police Department and town offices with a whole bunch of different countries, and the roles with the wire crime acts and methods as police forms families and or the people associated with them. There are some Mendez police brothers that faked conversations with me too, tricky ways. Do they pretend? In other words, they have roles with the World Trade Center attack and Saudis that they forced to collusions with them, and the Saudi attackers forced to collusions too. No, because there was more names. I mean, there was more. But you have to be able to appreciate the breaching method too. You have to be able to appreciate the predicate acts about the World Trade Center attack, which after the attack, which is also leaking and confessing and demonstrating and threatening they're going to pretend other WFSB. They have roles with the names before the World Trade Center attack in that context and since. Increasingly, people that were put in classes with me that had nothing to do with, all exceptions were used criminally for influence too, with people that weren't even in my classes, increasingly affecting confessions to me, tied to their roles with the names that were planting little tricks and fake things in databases at every campus I went with the names next to it too. They involved with this. Then they pretend it's personal. In other words, they lie about why we're using their names. They're sequence shifting. These are also people on all sides of the Ninth Circuit case, a case that was in the Ninth Circuit Court, and the people observing, besides myself, were involved with the names. Also, the court itself, from inside the court, post-dated to make it appear late. Papers that were proven after the attack, having been post-dated before the attack on time, and presented to the court with that insidious time shifting, from sequence shifting from inside of it. Because that's also a pattern with the people that have been in Connecticut, both sides of cases, planting evidences and used remotely hiding lie progressions as time collusions with a whole bunch of different countries. A whole bunch of people tied to my neighbors say that they have roles with it. No, they make vertical and horizontal confessions too. When they make fake exceptions of people knowing each other, there's a Delafair family that has roles with a probate court judge in their family, and they have roles setting kids up, like giving them things that back in the day when they had phones, where you had to put quarters or dimes in phones, pay phones. And there was a device that would look like cigarettes, and you put it there and it would send money. So there's some Delafair family members that know my name. I don't even know their name. A whole bunch of brothers. I never had a class with them. I only saw them like, their name will be repeated to you. Then you're going to walk somewhere and they're going to say something, make it look like you know that they're using rights to lie, but they don't have the right to lie. also as the people who had time rolls on the sides of I never saw them at at Town Line Drive shopping center there. But the sides of the shopping center has something to do with the people involved with the World Trade Center attack, named Demoro and Delafero, involved with judges and prosecutors, also with Judge Smith. Increasingly, they make confessions about their roles with the girls around them. I don't know Jennifer Smith. I never had a conversation with her in my life. When I was at her house in middle school, I did a goofy thing, but that was for a reason. That's recorded, increasingly tied to people involved with predicate acts of various natures, including since before they get caught, as people who are involved with medical, all sides of Hartford Hospital, with sexual and medical offenders of kids, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and their educators. These are not legitimate people. The investigators, all sides of cases. This breaching method painted them into quarters, trying to speak for the law, knowing that there would be a certain type of victim, hyper victim, that would be incapable of speaking for the law without self-value guidance to how to do it through the breaching method at countries A through Z. Clearer than day, the World Trade Center attack was effectively pulled off to have defenses of words like extremism or radical defended. Now also criminal enterprises. See, they have been grouping people wrong, and they have been, when people have conflicts, all of a sudden it's about race. The breaching method assigned that. You guys are forcing the quality of fact, treating nature as collusion, all sides of criminal and civil case, and names forging and switching. In other words, it's the fault of people A through Z, whether you're black or white, as the law names, and or the difference between them and everyone else. That difference is also part of it, because it's recorded how the black, white, and Latino have collusions with the KKK Confederate flag theme and foreign and domestic military, leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context and since. One of the things people from Wethersfield recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. In other words, there's also one of the things that connects people are strangers that make confessions about how they lie to the girls around them. And I'm not going to, in other words, and I don't even know them, so you don't say anything. In other words, they make fake exceptions of people knowing each other, like with a kid of the son of a dean judge from Central Connecticut State University. He's involved with Eric Burgess and his military roles with the FBI director, former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and his roles with people also with the name John Dennis and Joseph Dennis and their family members, with people all along Route 175, involved with mayors and people involved with predicate act, child offenders, identity theft, frauds, slanders. Juxtapose the difference between overt criminal enterprises and the people with the unmarked police forms. All kinds of drugs and medicines, crimes, methods, acts, and natures under the guise of medicine, under the guise of legitimate readings of laws and statute, also just faked into databases, and then they build on that with changing and faking more. All natures of locations have a nature that where they're only capable of using time simultaneously too fast and or too slow simultaneously, exactly opposite of how nature needs and shows. We need it appreciated. Also relative to where and to how. Wethersfield Police have their Facebook page, and the Britain Superior Court has their Facebook page. Involved also with the Facebook page of Hartford Hospital, with child sex offenders, and with various natures of federal criminals and murderers and people next to the body dumping spots that they brought up at the same time, and their rules with untimely deaths. And they run into Hartford Hospital to hide lipoaggressions, and they have acting professors involved. and they have the differences of their religious locations and sensibilities tied to that, where it is relative too. They have criminally foreign influence, fact, human nature, quality aspects in nature, because that nature was as you. I don't understand. Let's focus on the predicate acts, fake conversations about that WFSB pretended with me. At the same time, they pretended a whole bunch of things in the same stories. WTNH did this too with their sources. They have rules with names all along Ridge Road and Weathersfield and Route 175, who have rules with identity theft, fraud, slanders, taking pictures. This is one of the things that is used to keep the agencies involved with wire crime acts and methods self value as roles with World Trade Center predicate acts. So they switch and forge names, Weathersfield Police and the Britain Court people, and sequences as the names who were also involved with the ones at the Ninth Circuit Court in Manhattan the day of the World Trade Center attack, right before it. and interstates. These are also names with Washington D.C. who are in and tied to people who are put in a speech class, two speech classes I had. There are also names at and next to the state corrections offices and judicial branch offices involved with the names near me that worked with that had conversations with police actually and with the courts actually putting with for overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and other layers of roles with it with this intercities. In other words, Chris Walters, it's recorded that he only knows me in context where he was influenced to plant evidences and faked and changed natures of ties to me with others. I don't even know all their names. He recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed that a number of times in ways. He said it has something to do with their uses of the corner of Knott Street and Walker Hill, tied to his roles with a whole bunch of others at the Old Town Cafe in Old Weathersfield and corners of streets on Church Street in Old Weathersfield, and exceptions to that also exploited as names involved with the wire crimes, with the ones with a Phil Colello and a Bob Chase, further with the principal child defenders campus, and they have rules with the daughter of Mr. Murphy. I don't know if he's related to Senator Murphy, but also a reported relative of Congressman Larson is involved with some security with his family, with the school through time, involved with the shopping center on Town Line Drive, increasingly involved with people that are involved with predicate acts with kids, various natures of predicate acts with facts, methods, wire crime, mail crime, roles, drugs, medicines, crime, and delusions relative, black pupils. It is time. So one of the reasons, see the differences, the names of the people, the sciences are still bound, grouped, self-valued, having been grouped, tactical ulterior from how nature shows us to appreciate how we are individual human species body of individual bodies, with group differences being generated by its own, that which has its identity to the extent we could discern, that comes with its identity's complete identity relationship to itself. And the only increasing value of that completely, positive or negative. every identity has relativity, positive and negative, simultaneously / hyper simultaneously, per nature, as we can discern, as a quality of diffusion, relative to its identity relationship to itself, and the value of that. Three ways equally increasing as the value of every subject, any subject we could grapple with, individually grouped together. But two, regarding, for example, how three parts of time are grouped as its identity relationship to itself, and the value of that, a grouping, for example, and but means to discern its complete identity. Because so there is that extent of truth / s historic in the past that you know were true, it was truth always. There is an extent now active that you know is true always, as the same connected, the same reality, the same hyper truth, so to speak. and you know about the true value of the seasons that are not even here now before they come here. Their differences. Those are three parts of time that we know about at the same time while they're not. But anyway, and further, we with this and because of this, and we keeps it has that man is the, in other words, we could discern there's time before this that we know we don't know about, but we know that it was, and we know that there's a future that we don't know about, but we know that. And again, there's that part of the future we do know about right here now, even though it's not here. And we're going to come back to this because this is also where, relative to where and how we can discern that nature shows us it is functional, being a hyper invisible, but still discernible value/value progression, an identity of hyperconjunction to all the invisible but still discernible parts of speech, of English and of the other languages, even anything made up, every individual finite grouped parts of it and the simultaneous parts will have the 1/3 identities of has the 1/3 identities of possession, or even the smallest detail. It is more finite than the smallest thing. It is great while it is the greater than all things. That identity that has that it's that we know we didn't invent why and how we have two eyes. And the other species bodies, they're completely different species bodies, even insects and fish, they have two eyes. They have the same quality aspects in nature distinctly, but also non-distinctly and simultaneously, but also per that further hyper simultaneously, not us or nor them. And what we're observing there is its identity to the extent we could discern its identity of relationship to itself, which is not ourself, but it is anyway. In other words. And that's what makes it so, even though the fish are not ourselves, they have two eyes and they are ourselves anyway. In other words, we are Earth's a special difference because it is its relativity to it. With this, our consciousness system, see our system of hunger now, it has been through systems abridged as standing identities of criminal insidiousness, blaming on other things, others, ourselves. That was abridgments. Because this hyper sophistication measured and maintained other things, others, ourselves communicated than our founders communicated for them to communicate. We have to appreciate the difference. In other words, and nothing personal against Gaetano Di Novellis. There are some probate court judges and superior court judges and doctors like a Leahy family that will court to confess, demonstrate, confirm they involved you. With also my science teachers, with people who had conversations with them about me and have them repeat fake things. They're putting fake things in databases, intercampuses. At my grammar school before, my neighbor who moved in when I was in 4th grade moved into the house reportedly of a past police chief of his girlfriend, reportedly. The girlfriend of a of a daughter, reportedly the daughter of a police chief in Toronto. I never met her. She's reportedly tied to a Reno Mazzucato, who I never had a class with him, never saw him around school. They had something to do with a Mike Roberts, who they apparently took my picture near his house at a Connecticut shoreline town, and Jonathan Maiano has roles with them, with a Mazzucato bakery and a modern pastry. He's confirmed. I didn't mention that to him, In other words, but he's roles with the various police departments and foreign countries and medical families and people on the side of Hartford Hospital who have roles of wire crimes and acts and falsified police reports and drugs and medicines crimes with doctors, foreign and domestic, with little kids that are also attaching kids that they never even met to fake conversations and diagnoses and things in databases, and they build upon it years later for the use of location slash S, the way they are shown needs to. It has something, a Perone family and a Kerr family and a DeMoro family and a Colello family said they have narratives regarding they demonstrated, recorded, confessed, confirmed. They have narratives regarding the corner of Town Line Drive and Saustein Highway and their roles with town lines involved. These are people involved with state police with Vermont, Maine, Connecticut, Rhode Island, involved with wire and mail crime, drugs and medicines crimes, and delusions that are relative. We have identities of law that have delusions that are relative to black pupils. Oh, they follow not the law, mandated law properly, consciously as collusions, even with prisons. Sandy Hook prisons has roles with names on off the state corrections offices, on off the state judicial branch offices, and already having been collusion with all sides in criminal and civil cases, and the news at the same time. One of the reasons they have to become journalists, apparently, they have to keep illusions, demonstrably. All the countries in the news, they have Syrians, people from Syria, people from Lebanon, people from all the countries in the news, Saudi Arabia, people from Italy, people from the land down under, all collusion with this form, people tied to this former mayor. And I don't know that Eric Olson and Matt Olson, the intelligence community recorded on Facebook. They're trying to planting evidences roles, using them with a former mayor, a former teacher I had named Mr. Neville, who's involved interstates and along Route 3 with the people on the campuses involved on off campuses with predicate acts, and with state police at Whiting Forensics increasingly involved with in other words, them also with mayor's family members, with overt criminal enterprises and private ones. So they tried to make a fake exception on Zion Street in Hartford, Connecticut, with a whole bunch of people tied to the confessions and collusions of people named Colello and DeMoro, involved interstates too with Scalora family members. There are people with the name Scalora, recorded, confessed, demonstrate, confirmed involved with the World Trade Center attack and Florida locations with the intelligence community that has been sticking fake ties to me, fake natures of ties to me with my people that were in my campuses, and they made connections between people that weren't in my classes that came into my area, like Ray Claw and his sister. Well, he came when he came into my grade when I was in fourth grade, but he wasn't in my class. I never saw him inside of school. And the only time I saw him outside of school, we were in a fight. No, a quick fight, which is also evidence. In other words, because these are connections between people who are planting, using fights, timing where I was going to do it, and make it look like they knew me before that. At each age I was at, the campuses connected between those people. And their roles interstates with state police and Wethersfield police involved with them. And FBI Director Robert Luskin and his co-defendants and their family members. There were students involved with two teachers. There were conversations between students and teachers I never had personal conversation with. Two speech class teachers I had in high school. They had roles with names involved with the World Trade Center attack, and all along Route 175 with federal evidences crimes. And people, Joe DeMoro is one of the police forms involved with the FBI. in courts that recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They have people tied to a O'Connor family with people named Klotz. And Eric Klotz, I barely believe his brother's name is Sean Klotz. I don't know mother and father's name. But a Joe DeMauro and a Heather Hansen had roles with some home break-ins in the area in the past. And then there's a Kevin Dillon who has a guy who said to one of my speech class teachers that he has roles with his family at that corner of Carriage Hill and Fair Lane Drive. These are also with the Smith family. A Smith family recorded roles with federal evidences crimes at that corner with the Wethersfield police families and with those families members. These are also people who had time collusions with the principal sex offender and doctors and their family members and their patients who run into Hartford Hospital, including fire department families. There's a fire department next to Gary Burgess, Eric Burgess, involved with something to do with his. I never saw Eric Burgess on a campus in my life. They were pretending other. I don't know if they pretended other in records that could be found, but that's what's actually recorded. There are proofs that they're putting fake transcripts and to pretend things that were recorded on locations that are recorded 24/7. Per what I recorded, not trying to, which is all sides of criminal and civil cases used remotely at the same time with news and a whole bunch of criminal enterprises in other countries. And people are pretending, changing what people say when they mention predicate acts, especially regarding such serious things as a breaching method having applied black pupils and whites of eyes to communicate other than nature does, when nature is communicating not as criminal insidiousness, identity or relationship to itself. So we now hunger through systems abridged as through criminal insidiousness natures of systems. If we note that we are met by criminally foreign influenced and tactically delusions wrought, fact-driven nature styles, quality aspects of nature. Part of the reason they get away with this is self-valuing. Other things, others ourselves, blame for things in other words, for things our founders communicated for us to blame on the breaching method. Nature communicates this too. There's a difference between saying that a breaching method is one of the things that is all true always that slavery was about, and someone saying that racism is. So that is incapable of defending its logic or use of its nature and of affording discern. In other words, how the exceptions are being. In other words, how the breaching method employed to help and to hurt simultaneously. The differences, the cultural differences, the black-white relativity. So it measures and maintains campuses and voices only capable of blaming other things, others ourselves, for what nature shows us. Only capable of self-valuing. Abridged, timeless system, better than timeless. Forever nature's course, the way nature shows us that we have obligations to discern the distinction, the difference between criminal insidiousness natures of positive, truths used for lies, truths used to screen lies, truths used to screen motivations, truths used to screen acts, methods, styles, natures. For example, pretending people said things that are debatable or theoretical just because they haven't been proven in courts. What's recorded are all sides of cases and the courts switching names and planting collusions with a whole bunch of different countries, terrorists, criminal enterprises, the same ones per worse. They said people from Wethersfield associated with the wire crimes with the name Colello and a Phil Colello with a Bob Chase, with the state police and Wethersfield police and the FBI and the courts, family members. They had war crimes and put people with a Robert Rodriguez involved with some untimely deaths with them at Trinity College and on my street, as the ones involved with the all sides of Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, Connecticut. Increasingly involved with people I didn't even have classes with at my grammar school who were planting evidences with mayors and trying to make fake exceptions sometimes too with some of them. In other words, black pupils. Here! We shouldn't have to beg to get them on one name in sequence. A Joe DeMauro and a Ray Close. Sometimes it's their family members that influence them criminally, foreign influence, tactically, delusions, or self-value, remote uses of it. Sometimes it's their sources. They brought up Judge Napolitano involved with it, and a Spada family. They have narratives and natures with people on all sides of the reservoir in Weathersfield. Also involved with body dumping spots, increasingly their roles with the names next to it, and their narratives where people walk by, and so they can pretend that people had conversations that never were. They're planting evidences. Increasingly, kids and adults from Trinity College recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed this. I never had a verbal conversation with a Joshua Stryker in my life. I made it sound. No, on Facebook they have recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles using Facebook to cover up how they have roles with predicate acts with facts, identity theft, fraud, slanders, pretended legitimate roles with the investigators, people on off the state of Connecticut judicial branch offices and correction offices involved with leaking their names with the houses and names next to them, for example. And then so they can pretend that people are making, we have to tell now. You have Weathersfield police forging, switching names, refusing to get on paper since I was a kid, as increasingly at times collusions with a whole bunch of different countries. Clearer than day, these people are, in other words, some kids from my school told me they were influenced to make a joke when I was walking. I don't even know who they were, to make it look like I knew them. If I were repeating, in other words, about me, American, me very smart, me take pee out of Coke and put back in your Coke. Some stupid joke like that. They have their rules. Whoever's rules, there are proofs that they have rules with China, because China was rules here before our founders. There were rules while our founders were still in the phase, and as they still are, trying to get the presidents free enough to have free speech. But the presidents don't have free speech. We don't have free speech. The people of China don't have free speech. Their leader doesn't have a free speech. Any grouping of humanity does not have a free speech, while locations, areas, and states are hyper-criminally foreign influenced. Nature shows us why and how. We are supposed to be simultaneously united and independent. And further, appreciating its system while we are independent group. Well, not, but anyway. Many pray, vaccines. I teach those things. Not one name in the news is capable of using America's name or the names of other countries. A through Z. We have to name this breaching method, even if it's not standing. We name it a hyper-archetypal criminal enterprise. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a police force, I'm not a criminal. A Trantolo and Trantolo, I have barely any words with them at all. They're one of the ones recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, being used remotely, self-valuing sequence shifts and delusions and federal evidences crimes and wire crime acts and methods and drugs and medicines crimes rolled through that with a proven principal child offender. And people pretending through the mail, fake transcripts, fear God. Then they have rules, all the difference, the new roles with use of a location /S, criminally foreign influence / hyper criminally foreign influence. Fear God, to pretend that you know someone who spoke legitimately, formally for New York City, for example. All exception, nature, demonstration, same thing. The differences between how the Democrats' individual voices or the Republicans' individual voices, you guys are forcing that. You guys are forcing the complete possession over all natures of sophistication. You guys are using your knowledge of good and evil of every subject, just to get over on what's really right. That's what, in other words, we were using James Madison's plan here. They had to force people to be presidents. They had to force people to be founders, let alone presidents. And there's a distinction between those words because there's a distinction between our founders and our presidents. Distinctly, they are. Non-distinctly, the presidents, but also distinctly and simultaneously, but also hyper simultaneously, the same way. That identity leads our revelations and answers and questions regarding why and how we have the same color eyes and different color eyes at the same time. And the same color is two colors, and they are white and black. And how that was left out all this time, while the breaching method is left out, and they blame, oh, well, look, the records say that the founders had slaves. George Washington had slaves. We don't know if that was true, but in other words, we do know that George Washington was one of the people we're supposed to be honest about his extortion and his agreed roles to use James Madison's plan and the founders behind him with it, which was a plan to extort the other founders, therefore the other presidents too know, and make them break the rules syntactically of the crazy extortion, torture, slavery method against everyone sickly distinctly. Two, to use functionally how sickly non-distinctly is left out by descriptions of instances, names, the real causes of negative value nature, progressions, acts, and natures, the real worst causes of it. Like when they mention fentanyl. I don't know anything about fentanyl, but I know the experts on it. I've recorded predicate acts with facts methods at the locations involved. Recorded collusion, self-value, not realizing all sides with the difference between police, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, the courts, the people on off the corrections and judicial offices, with intelligence families, with their acting professors. They have acting professors involved with WTNH sources along Church Street in Old Weathersfield, and where it takes conjunction with Main Street in Old Weathersfield. And these are founding locations where others communicated too, still, where our founders communicated about it. And then all from there, all the way along Route 173, 175, all the way through from Weathersfield through the old town, through Weathersfield, through Newington, and to Central Connecticut State University. Central Connecticut State University has intelligence families that affected confessions to me from people I didn't know real quick when I was in grammar school. And I still don't know, people never spoke with them, but I know, like, in other words, there's a wife of Justa Klovinskis is one of the ones I never had a conversation with her in my life. One time they tried to make a fake exception in the cafeteria, and that was the only exception I ever saw him on a school in my life. And I didn't confirm to her, tell her that. I knew that she has roles with the Tim O'Brien and Andrew O'Brien intelligence family up the street from me, involved with multiple police departments. I didn't know that at the time. I knew that at the time too, but now I know even more police departments, intercities, and former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and various judges and the prosecutors and their family members have been planting evidences on my street and at and next to the campuses. And then they run to hide live progressions, exploiting phenomena associated with places, with the hospitals, where they have unmarked police forms and where they have, roles with the campuses, training everyone, relative to where the delusions and the criminally foreign influence fact treatment nature methods are the subject here, the predicate acts and predicate acts with facts methods. So there are people that pretended conversations with me, also as doctors forging names. A Dr. Shamsi Ali said that he didn't write that when they put me in fake conversation with them. First of 3 times they forced me to Hartford Hospital. I asked people to to call the police without telling them why. And then I didn't speak with the police because I noticed the people there were involved with what I was going to tell on, like people tied to a Kevin Dillon and to a Connecticut, a Weathersfield Community Center. There's also a Mike DeMaine who's involved with the Rick Sam Faglione with judges and prosecutors with with religious nutbags and child offenders of kids proven already and further recorded tied to them. Next to Fox Connecticut News is also Mulcahy family. I never had a conversation, never met them. Alison Mulcahy, I don't even know her sister's name. Per Mike DeMaine. See, he's one of the people who screams out thing. Who screamed out like he was one of the he's Jewish to pretend that he knew I know him, and has his collusions with people that make comments against Jews where they plant evidences together. That's why I didn't respond. And Miss Riley, who was my algebra class teacher, repeated that a girl that lives near me. I don't think she repeated that she's Jewish, but she repeated about her, how she was kissing someone. I don't even know her or who she was kissing, who she was talking about. You know, they're planting evidences also with Anthony Agnew was in that class. And then the only other person in that class was a guy tied, who was reportedly uh, a relative of a Congressman Larson. And that class is also involved with the Gaetano, the Novellas, with people all along Route 175 and Route 3, with the judicial branch and the corrections offices involved with criminal enterprises next to the high schools, private and overt, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and whiting forensics increasingly with people tied to this, to and as this Phil Colello, who's involved with Bob Chase and various natures of a whole bunch of judges and their family members and their delusions. We can't leave them out because the difference between them and the delusions is used by the breaching method. That is the sophistication that we could discern superior to the suits and ties, counters, and exceptions as collusions that we could discern. Black people. It is time. Police force mandated law to be followed and have Judge Napolitano do what's right and get the Connecticut interbranch onto paper in one name and sequence. This has been since I was a kid. They've been stacking predicate acts with facts into their databases. And they have Hartford courts and the Connecticut's district court involved, and a whole bunch of names next to the involved with the involvements with the judicial offices involved with the World Trade Center attack, and they're leaking and trying to start fights between me and victims of the World Trade Center since I was a kid. There are proofs that they even repeated and pretended they knew me or pretended they believed legitimate information was legitimate that wasn't. These are also people that foresaw these collusions with them, including my ex-wife. In other words, and she wasn't in the World Trade Center attack, but Scalora was one of the ones involved. Also, Ray Reynolds was brought into this. Ray Reynolds was in my kindergarten class. I only went to the school for 1 year. They put fake things tied to it. It's a Harris family too, with all kinds of police forms who have roles with psychiatry, who and their family members plant evidences on campuses. On and off, Quinnipiac University has roles with some judges and prosecutors and names and their family members at Two Rod Highway and Hangdog Lane. Involved also on the state judicial branch and corrections offices and the Facebook pages of Weathersfield Police and the Britain Superior Court, involved with sequence shifts and passion crimes and pretending not to read, and delusions that are also relative. Because these are also people with doctors. Weathersfield Police confessed, recorded, confirmed, demonstrated. A police chief, Cintron, is one of the ones that influenced them to switch names. And in other words, I don't know. they made a statement about a Leahy family. I don't know which one they were talking about. I had no conversations with anyone. Those are the ones who are involved with them, pretending evidences through the mail, and people from other areas affected confessions. They were influenced to plant evidences on my street. These are doctors with badges and foreign and domestic military at Harvard Hospital that should fear God now, and they should have feared God a long time ago, and they should fear God with the people associated with and as journalists along that street tied to Central Connecticut State University. Fear God. Get them on paper, one name and sequence. Let's get them on paper.